Eden Cause here with Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. And as we begin the show, just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a soul realignment specialist, meditation master, and dimensional healer. Learn more, and there's merch also at EdenJustBe.com. Let's get this party started. Eden Just Be Spiritual Boom in association with the Grassroots Warriors Network. Welcome, Isabella Young. How are you doing this morning for you? Afternoon for me, morning for you. How's it going?
It's a beautiful morning here in Kauai. I'm doing really well, and I'm looking forward to our conversation, Eden. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to be a guest on your podcast. I love your passion, and I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation this afternoon.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and give a nod. Excuse me, I have to clear my throat for a second. To a little bit of what we're going to be talking about today. So Isabella's cult experience and then the spiritual healing that came from that, but you'd already been spiritually healing before that. And what the show is very positive in terms of the Great Awakening, yet it doesn't, like many shows, it also goes into seriousness and to raise our consciousness, accepting some things in the world that may not be that pleasant. And what I love about your story, Isabella, is it's a really harsh story, yet you come out from it with triumph. And I love what you said in one show too, it was a microcosm of the macrocosm that's going on in the world today. And I'm very excited to hear that from you. So I hope our listeners and our watchers are going to get ready. Okay, 3 things to tell you guys before we begin. So I always want to bring up Hygge. So 12% off if you use my link down below. And we're probably going to talk about grounding today. So they have red light therapy products, grounding products. I have all of those in my house. I do not have their EMF clothing, which I'm assuming is really, really good. And then this is really important. Still conducting a Zoom class sometime in December. I'm not sure the exact date, yet it is about moving into a 5D divine relationship. And I'm about 9 months into mine. For those who don't know, I was divorced, was in a marriage for 25 years, divorced for 5. Went on one date during that period of time, waited until I had completely healed from any kind of narcissism and then being ready, but then also doing it this time completely differently, knowing that we were moving into this time during the Great Awakening where the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And this gentleman I'm with, oh my gosh, the healing of the divine masculine, it abounds. Yet I'm cool with that. I'm having a really good time. And I've learned so much. So if anyone's interested in that, please email me at EdenJustBe.com because there are some qualifications that we can talk about. Finally, and Isabella, thank you for your patience. So Gold IRA scams, episode 188. We're on 201 with you, which is awesome. So as all of you know, I was involved in a Gold IRA scam. There are lots of big names out there that do this, and a lot of them are not good. So Kevin at Miles Franklin spent 2 months with me to move my IRA to another firm, but he's doing this out of it doesn't matter if I went with Miles Franklin. They don't care. They are doing this because they realize, and they have seen so many people lose so much money. So if you think you might be in that situation or you're looking to invest with a company that has integrity, oh my gosh, email info@Miles Franklin and put Eden in the subject line. We have a personal experience together. This is not just me encouraging this. It's a big deal. Okay, Isabella, how about I read about you now? And let's get started. Thank you for waiting. And I love your bio, by the way. So I'm going to read it with much zest. All right, let me click my papers. Isabella Young is a pioneering educator, healer, and truth seeker whose life journey is nothing short of extraordinary. From founding one of Australia's first therapeutic outdoor education programs to surviving personal tragedy, cult entrapment, and profound loss, her faith has been one of deep transformation and radical awakening. Now, thriving in Kauai, I love this line. She shares her hard earned wisdom. How many of us can relate to that? Through books, art, and natural healing to help others reclaim their sovereignty, their humanity, and their divinity. Isabella offers a raw and illuminating look at healing and empowerment through nature, truth, and unwavering. Let me say that again. I love that. Unwavering spiritual resilience. I would put myself in that category. So it'll be fun to talk. My first question for you, because your story is so interesting, your awakening from 3D to 5D, I throw out all these other words, the matrix, the great awakening. How did you first become aware of that? Was it through your cult experience or your first husband? Because I know about your mom. We can talk about how you grew up as well. So how did you start opening up into that specifically?
I can remember, firstly, thank you, Eden. That was a lovely introduction.
You're welcome.
Uh, I think I can identify a few points along my awakening journey, and it's still happening. Like I've been having epiphanies over the last few
Yeah.
days. But I think the major like jumps I had for me was I was raised by a devout atheist, like a militant atheist. My mother hated God, and she would spit the word God out with all the venom she could muster. And she had us, her children believing that we were superior to everybody else because we knew that God wasn't real, and all these idiots who were religious and going to church and all that, they were just like they were sheep, and religion was a crutch for humanity. So, there was I as a young atheist, and I too was felt superior to other people. And then I met the man who was my first husband, and he was a spiritual warrior and a warrior in the true sense of the world. He did 4 tours of Vietnam during the Vietnam War. He turns out he was the longest serving Australian soldier in the Vietnam War, and I only found out that within the last 8 years. He never said anything like that. He was extremely humble, but with the SAS, I could that kind of worry, but also he'd opened his mind and was now pursuing more of a spiritual path. So when we met, he gave
So
me
let me ask you, you're from Australia originally, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay. And did you meet
yeah,
Barry in Australia or was he from
yeah.
the States?
No, he was an Australian. We're living in Melbourne at the
Okay.
time.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we met. He was an instructor on the final year of my outdoor education degree or physical education degree. I majored in outdoor ed, so teaching climbing and skiing and hiking and canoeing, all that sort of stuff. And that's what he did too. He used his military experience to then work with corporations to take teams from corporates out into the wilderness for team building and problem solving and all that sort of stuff. And he was right. He was the first company to do that.
Oh my God. What a
And
match with you guys. I mean, that
yeah,
too.
it was. It
Wow.
was. That really was. And that was part of the just the absolute horror of when he passed away. Was I knew that we were, I don't want to do the whole soulmates thing, but we were definitely, there was something very special about our relationship and our connection. But he really giving me the books to read, like the autobiography of a yogi and the Little Prince and other books that really opened my mind. I started having like dreams about a avatar called Sai Baba, and he was having his own experiences. We meditated together. We were doing tantra workshops together, shamanic work, and that really just opened my mind to there being more to the world that can be perceived through the five senses. So that really started my spiritual journey, and after that, that became my priority. And then there was the whole uh, cult experience and how that and then basically my son's murder that really snapped me out of another level of mind control. there I was thinking I was in an ashram with my guru, and then found out, no, you're not. You're in a cult, and you're in a very dangerous situation. And then I remember the next after, so then I got out and started my healing journey. And then I remember the next major piece that took me from, like you said, the microcosm of understanding what had happened to me, it being in a cult, was starting to study what happened in 9/11 and going down that rabbit hole and finding out, oh my God, this is an inside job. And then that started to unravel my belief that the government was good and here to protect us and all that sort of stuff. So then that basically brought down the house of cards about the whole way that society is set up.
Wow.
And then it's just been a journey since then to realize how deep that goes, how deep that rabbit hole goes. And yet it was just yesterday that I realized that all these technologies that we have, the black screen technologies, particularly from the television, the cell phones, of video games and all that's technology is technology from the human slavers, because these are the ways that they control us. And while we might think, oh, but I'm learning so much and I'm connecting with people from all over the world, they're still using these technologies to control our emotions, our consciousness, our behaviors, and really to disconnect us from the natural world, the human experience. So now we're relating to life through screens, and we're becoming more of these like techno humans. It really is like cyborgs who don't have a connection to the natural world, to higher self, and to other people, becoming very roboticized. So it's not, the whole awakening out of 3D consciousness seems to be a continuing journey for me.
I two questions I want to ask you. When I found out the truth of 9/11, it was so, because I was pregnant at the time when it went down, and a part of me was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm bringing a child into the world with these horrible things going on." I had no idea about the Great Awakening at this point, or the government being a part of that. It was so, and I don't know about you, but there have been many discoveries that I've made that were just shocking. And 9/11 at the time, I cried with that one too, thinking of it, knowing that all of this is spiritual and that we all came in, this to play our part in this, but yet the hurt and the just tragedy of that. And it was one of those situations that was just mind blowing. Like it shifted everything.
Yeah, it
How was
did.
that for
It
you?
actually shifted the fabric of reality. Like
Yes.
it seems that technologies that we don't even know about were used during that event that really did vibrate through the fabric of reality and shift things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and how I
Yeah.
also wanted to ask you, and I want to ask more questions about the cult experience as well. Yet, let's go into AI for a moment. I have, with varying guests on the show, there was one recently that was talk about you. She feels it's okay to use AI if you use for the highest good. There's a part of me right now, I use GPS, but that's pretty much it. I don't there are no Alexas in my house. I know that the computer is watching. I know, but
Yeah.
I am not drawn to chat GPT. I'm not drawn to any of it right now. Where do you stand on that?
I'm getting further and further away from it being okay
Yeah.
to this whole AI thing. This is if the AI was designed by people who had it in their hearts and minds that this was for the highest and good, if that's what the developers had in, that was their intention, and the programmers and whoever else is responsible for bringing it to us, if their intention behind it all was for the evolution of humanity, then all well and good. But that's not the case. These
Exactly.
are, at the moment, whatever is bringing forth these technologies for us to use, their intention is to keep us enslaved and ignorant and readily available for energy harvesting. So I know it can be used if you're discerning. You could like use it in some ways that might be beneficial. But basically, I feel like people are sellouts when they just hand their creativity over to AI. I feel like those people who it just embrace it, like, oh yeah, well, we can use it for the highest good, are really just skipping over the fact that's not the intention behind it. It's not intended to uh, continue to evolve us. And we really need to be protecting our humanity in every way possible. So don't be handing over that creative ability to whatever it is, create art, write, or make music or whatever. It's because whatever we create through AI is soulless and heartless. It just is. Even if we've been involved in it, you can't get around that fact. It's unnatural, it's synthetic, and it's non-human, anti-human. That's what I think of it. And sometimes I have used it, and it's kind of fun. But my concern is that there are now two generations of humans who are growing up through the screen. So they're used to looking at those sort of AI images. They really can't tell the difference now between what they're seeing on the screen and what's out there in the natural world, because they're not even seeing what's out there in the natural world anymore. They don't know the difference between an artificial sunset they see through the screen and the real one, because they're not looking at that. They're not looking at the stars and the moon and the forest and the trees. They're being disconnected from the human experience, and therefore that's disempowering and dehumanizing.
It is.
So
It's like,
that's what I think of AI.
I
I think
love
that the
that.
scary thing is, sorry, I think the scary thing is that there are so many people who I would have thought, just like the same thing happened that we saw happen when the injection experiment took place, how I was shocked how many people were willing to participate in
Yeah.
that for the highest good. I think that I can see the same thing happening with this AI thing. People are just willing to participate, and well, it must be good because here it is, rather than thinking, hang on a minute, how's this going to affect our evolution? And it's happening so quickly. I think it's insidious, and there should be more alarms being raised about it.
Yeah, that's a great comparison with the jab and just people going, "Oh, I'm going to do this because my neighbor, it's good for my family." And for AI, it is giving away your consciousness if we're going to get right down to it. And it's really interesting, Isabella. I wonder what you think about this. Before I became a spiritual practitioner, I was in advertising and the creative end, and I think about that so often that I'm sure that industry now, like, copywriters, illustrators, designers, that all you have to do now for a logo is ask AI to make you one, like that whole field and that whole creative. Because for me at that time, that was all I could see myself doing. I couldn't go into accounting, or I didn't have that kind of a mind. So not having that as a young person, I don't know what I would have done. What do you think about that too? And you do art, correct?
Yeah, and I use Photoshop, so that's sort of it functions like AI a little bit. Uh, yeah, I think that it's a whatever it is with this whole AI thing needs to be much more looked at with a lot more skepticism than
Yeah.
it is, rather than just embracing it. Because like we've got the whole in over in LA, they have I don't know if it's still going, maybe it is, the writer's strike, because um, movies are a lot cheaper to make when you can get the script written by AI,
Oh
or
my
get AI to
God.
do the backgrounds, or even just the actors, right? You can do a
That
whole
too.
movie like that and not even have to pay anyone
I
except the
know.
people who are going to do the whole thing. And then, yeah, it's just a really, really dangerous fine line we're walking on with the technology. And already there's so many people laid off. Tens of thousands of people have been replaced. And then there's the psychosis that people are developing from believing they're in relationships with
Oh my gosh, that
bots
too.
and all that, and taking their lives or taking someone else's life. It's causing a lot of sickness, mental health problems, and yeah, it's just a topic that is becoming. I'm feeling more and more passionate about, as I can appreciate more and more about how we're just being manipulated by these technologies. Because there's otherwise there'd be no way into, like, porn, for instance, without these black screen technologies, or no way into go those really dark dungeons of hell that come up through the dark web. So these technologies do open portals to demonic realms, and we that's not good for us.
Well, I appreciate your passion with this because it is. I know so many colleagues or friends that are using, or even I have when PR people approach me to have people on the podcast. I remember the first time someone came to me and they highlighted an episode and went through, oh, I loved when you talked about this and talked about this, and everything was written so well. And a part was like, oh my gosh, I feel so touched by this. So I reached out back to them, and then I ended up getting two or three more just like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, they really didn't listen to my podcast. They had AI listen to it and structured this note to me that felt so personal and so good. And now I can
Gosh.
see right through that writing and see how, and it is so, and I get it. Like that one PR person I actually said, hey, I feel that AI wrote a lot of this for you, not being critical. And she stated basically, I have so many people that I am desiring to get out there that it helps me a lot be much
Yeah.
more efficient. And I was like, yeah, I got that. But essentially, because one of the things you talk about is being authentic, you're not presenting yourself to me authentically. Someone else did the work, and not even a human being
Right.
did the work. And now you're coming to me. It's just, it's again, it's crossing this line of truth, of authenticity. Wow, there's a lot to go into that
Yeah,
too.
there is. Because she may be being more efficient, but she's being less human. And just
Yeah,
think about this. It took you with all your work and experience and consciousness to pick that up, to be able to discern that
hmm,
that had happened. But there are other younger people who don't have that. There's no way they're going to be able to tell
that's
what
true.
was what was created with AI and what was actually created by a human. I even thought about when I put
Oh,
my book out, I should put written by a real human, because
you should.
I
Oh my
should.
gosh. That is so right. And I just saw this meme yesterday, Isabella. I have to say, so it showed four periods of time. So the 1950s, it showed two parents with a kid walking and swinging. Then it went to the 1980s with a family sitting in front of the TV. To the 2000s, okay, I remember this, with a mom on her phone and her child on the computer. To currently everybody sitting separately on their own
Yeah,
device. And it was like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, that is where we are right now.
Children don't know how to play anymore. They don't know how to play, and they don't play outside. So therefore there's so much that's lost for a developing human when the child isn't playing or playing outside. There's so much that we learn when we're playing and when we're free playing. So that's just one little way that these devices have. They what made it easier for parents because now their children are bothering them, asking because they're now addicted to their own devices, and the parents they don't want to disconnect from their phones either. So it works that everyone gets their own device and stays in their own little world. It's really, really scary because these are soul harvesters that are at the moment have temporary control of our evolution. But this is the thing. So then you go, okay, all right, so that's happening. What does that mean? And what it means to me is that all these, like all that we can look outside ourselves and point at as being bad and wrong and evil and all that, at the base level, what they're doing is they're really forcing us into our, higher evolutionary state of being. Because once we recognize that, then we have to work to work to increase our own frequency and our own light, because we are up against forces that want to keep us down, keep us ignorant, keep us
Yeah.
enslaved. And so those forces are really ultimately the forces of our evolution, which is kind of ironic, really. Like the darkness serves the light.
Yes.
That's how I see it.
Let me ask you this. I thought this was interesting. I had someone on the show a while back, that
Oh, excuse me.
so I'm 55. When was younger, was pretty much like, hey, go out and play, come back, especially in the summers. I'm from the southern part of the US, so it was really warm for a long time. Go out and play and then come home. So we did have this freedom, and then everyone was moved into this fear. You have to do play dates with your kids. And I recognize that, but then also the child trafficking part of it, that there is, like, you do need to keep an eye on your kids. I wonder what that balance is with that. What remarks would you say to that?
Yeah, it is a balance because there are reasons to be fearful about what could happen to children if they were just randomly playing outside, which is tragic because we're probably the last generation that were playing freely outside, riding bikes to friends' houses, um, going out into the woods and making forts or,
Yeah.
we did a lot of that. We go fishing and all sorts of stuff like that, just freely on our own without adults. And like I said before, that's a huge loss of experience for children. My answer is I'm so glad that I'm not raising children now because I think it must be an extremely
Yeah.
challenging job to be raising a child because I was followed the very much like the natural parenting thing. So I did conscious conception and lotus birth, and then of course no jabs, Steiner Waldorf education, and that school system itself doesn't really encourage children to even be watching television or having computers until like high school. So that would be a real battle. It must be
Wow.
just a battle because even if you did delay screen time, which is of course recommended for as long as possible, then even when you start, then you've got your child addicted because they are addicting. I know for me that these are by design addicting. So then you've got to spend your time battling with, okay, we're having no screens during meal times, or we're going to have a screen-free day, or we're going to go camping and have no cell phones or whatever. You'd have to really work hard to structure in time to be human. Pull your child away from the screens. Must be really challenging for parents.
Yeah. And I
And I
work
can
with,
see how it'd be easy to just give in and just go, okay, we'll go, go and just go and play your
just do
video
it.
games.
And
Just do it.
I work with several parents that are very conscious, and we talk about cell phones and delaying. Like even my child, my youngest, who's now 21, she didn't get a phone until eighth grade, and she was like the last. And I know now kids in first grade, second grade, I mean, they all have phones. It's just, I yeah, and luckily both my girls love nature. It's incredible. All right, I want to switch over. Can you talk a little bit about your cult experience? And I know, Barry, you talked about your first husband passed away unexpectedly and you were pregnant with your second child. Okay, and knowing that the period of time, I think you expressed that if you didn't have your kids, you probably would not be on this earth right now.
No, we wouldn't. Yeah.
So what was the process after that and going into the cult? What happened?
Well, after Barry died, I had to sell the farm that we were living on because my dream had been to be as
Oh,
self-sufficient as possible and have some horses. And not, there was no way I could do that on my own, let alone with, two children. So I had to sell that. And then I spent
wow.
years trying to find out where was a good place to be and who I was, to redefine myself after
Yeah.
my partner left. So I actually stayed with a lot of people. I traveled around Australia a lot and stayed with friends. And I did this shamanic course called Dying to Live, which I thought was really appropriate because I really needed some help too with overcoming my death wish. And that was a um, basically like a darkness retreat,
Mm.
preparing for a death experience on the last day. And so we were blindfolded and in silence, except for when we came together, when we ate and when we came together in this temple space to write our will and our eulogy and letters
Oh,
of thank you and all that forgiveness. And then on the Friday morning, we did a guided meditation of the death experience. And I just remember the words Antakarana and Merkaba. And then had my I haven't had another out of body experience. So that was a huge out of body experience. And I met some beings, including Barry, and they told me to go and start training with this particular individual I hadn't met. I just heard his name. And so when I came back down, it took me like a few days to actually coagulate. And after the course, I called him up and he said, come and be with him in his ashram. And he like said he was my guru and I was looking for direction. I did want a spiritual teacher. I felt like I was floundering.
yeah.
And in that moment, he also promised that we'd have a family. We'd be together as a family, and I wanted that too, because coming
Yeah.
from a divorced home and then losing the family again for the second time after Barry died, so everything seemed to be what I was wanting.
Okay. So
And
Barry's spirit
yeah,
basically said the cult leader's name, like go with him.
yeah,
Oh, wow. What?
I
Okay. I
know.
want to circle
And
back to
it
that.
well, we might as well go there now, right? So it could,
Okay.
given what happened, it could be that I was actually met by what demons presenting themselves as mm, benevolent beings. That could be a possibility,
Mhm.
or that I was just making stuff up or whatever. But I believe that everything that happens to me is because I wanted, chose, and created it, and that means everything. So I'm the sovereign being here. I'm the one that's the directing my soul evolution. So that was what was the best step for me, even though what happened
I get it.
happened.
I get it. It was
Yeah,
the highest good for you.
so,
Because a lot of times we don't,
right,
the highest good may look not anything like what we expected. So, okay.
exactly.
Beautiful. Thank
And
you.
and I feel like if I follow my intuition and I follow my the guidance that I hear, see, feel, or whatever,
Yeah.
then I'm on the right path. Like I have to keep trusting that, and that was part of me following that path that was unfolding for me. And the other thing is too, I feel like if we're on this, it committed our lives to serving God, to serving truth, then that's going to be tested, right? Like the keys to the kingdom aren't just going to be handed over to you because you think that they
Yes.
should. You're not going to become the vessel of light just because you say you're going to get tested to see whether you do have the integrity. Do you have the strength? Do you have the resilience? Do you have the commitment? Do you have the perseverance? So I feel like that's the reason why some of us get tested more than others. Just to got to build up that the fortitude and the like. Yeah, we need to go through these initiations. Well, my soul did anyway. I needed to go through this initiation. So that's how I got to the cult, which I thought was an ashram, and then we were living as a family, but
Yeah.
also as a community. There were other homes around us, and the cult leader, his name's Louix Dor Demprey. Don't ever look for him. Don't ever go to any events of him. He's an extremely dangerous spiritual and sexual predator, and he's still operating.
Okay. And this is
And
in the
he believes,
States. Or is it
yeah,
just in the States or outside of the
he.
US?
I know he does have cult homes in Melbourne.
Okay.
And in fact, we just reported him to the Victorian government, did an inquiry into high control groups and cults. So we put in a report to the parliamentary inquiry there because, yeah, he's still operating. He has a very small operation, it's kind of works for him because everyone who's around him or relates to him online has to pay to be in his presence. You got to tithe 10% of your income, and that funds him to be able to live his debaucherous lifestyle. So it's a small operation, but he's been able to keep his head under the wire, and not what like those big cult, not like Iyengar or the Indian cult gurus.
Hmm.
He just runs a small operation.
Do you mind saying his name once again? Because I
Louis,
appreciate.
Louix, second word, Dor, Dor, last name, Domprey, Demprey. A Yogananda came to him and bestowed him this name and told him he's the Maitreya, the Kalki avatar, the one to save humanity. Now I remember in the cult thinking, oh my God, if he is that, we are screwed. Because he was not a nice person, not a good person, certainly not a being of divine love, a being of hypocrisy and sex addiction. Not
Okay.
a not a good person at all.
All right. So when he proposed to you, apparently he was already practicing homosexuality practices, and then said to you, "I'm over that, I guess." And yeah, go. And you weren't. Were you attracted to him, or just attracted to him because of the being that you thought he was? Tell us about that a little.
It was such a strange dynamic
Wow.
when I first came there, because there was definitely there were a lot of synchronicities and coincidences going on.
Yeah.
We both independently heard this song, "I Knew I Loved You Before I Met You" by Sacred Garden. So there were a lot of
Oh my God.
that we kept on hearing. It's at quite profound times, and other things that I can't remember. I'll probably block them out. But anyway, there were. a lot of these signs and that seem to point towards a connection between us, but he's not an attractive man, and he's, being gay, he's got that effeminate energy. So for me, as a woman, that's not very attractive. It's kind of repulsive for me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I wouldn't, but just on, in a relationship, I feel like I need a man, not a soft little gay man. And so it was strange. It was just a weird connection. I didn't really feel attracted to him, like, oh, hey, babe, like
Yeah,
that
this
type
is
of thing.
great.
But it seemed more like a destiny type of attraction. Like, what is going him? What is this connection? And then, like you said, he proposed to me. And when I asked him, well, what about the fact that you're gay? He said he'd healed all his issues.
Okay.
And that turned out to be a lie, because why we had sex one time to consummate the marriage, and then he never touched me again in that way for 8 years. He told me that all these different reasons, like I was too needy, I was too much like a man,
Oh,
I'd been disrespectful, I didn't deserve his touch, and then
oh, man.
and then eventually it just went into years of, well, celibacy, just think of yourself like a nun. And it's an interesting form of sexual abuse
Mhm.
to have that intimacy taken away, taken out of their relationship, which I'm glad now. Like, I'm really glad, because clearly he's uh, has a sex addiction. He's extremely promiscuous. And so I would have been opening myself to all types of, like, I'm so
Mhm.
grateful that it went the way it did. But yeah, he was grooming the boys in the cult, and he was grooming the men too, really.
So when you
And
you
that's
started, you already had your two sons, correct?
I had a son and a daughter.
And a
They
daughter.
were Barry's children. My
Okay.
daughter Ella was born after Barry died, and then I conceived another daughter. And I, just for privacy reasons, won't say her name, because I
I
don't know
got
where
it.
she's at with all that. But yeah, and that she was the one. This is another one of the aspects that I was able to see. Oh, this is how a cult operates. So when she was born, the cult leader did this, like a psychological operation, just a psyop, like we can see happening on the world stage. So the
Mhm.
psyop was that she was the embodiment of Lord Ganesha, the Hindu, deity that removes obstacles. So when she came in, she was venerated. People would
Oh
come
my
and,
gosh.
yeah, make offerings to her, and she was put up on the stage to do healings on people and stuff. Was and my other children were supposed to be, bowing down to her. So it was extremely toxic, unhealthy, you know, yes, sick environment. And then I put a stop to that after, well, it took a couple of years really to say that's enough of that.
Well, how did she even handle that? Did her ego become very inflated? Did she believe that
Yeah, I
about
think that
herself?
well, who knows what he was saying? This is the thing about him. He would get into people's ears and just, well, for my children, he would speak badly about me, tell them I'm a crazy bitch, and,
Oh,
I'm unstable and unbalanced and need to go into a psych ward. And he would also tell the children that I love them
oh.
unequally. He would tell them that I loved, one child more than the other. And that is pure evil.
Hmm.
Because I couldn't even hearing about how parents have favorite children and stuff like that. I feel that that's just wrong
Hmm.
to have, even to be speaking like that.
Hmm.
So for him he used that as a weapon to, triangulate the children, just like any narcissist does, to, maintain control, and to also just break me. That's, most of the ways that he behaved around the house would just provoke me and enrage me, and it worked.
Oh my God.
It worked. It made me crazy.
Okay, we're going to talk about your son too. How long was this for you? How many years?
It was 8 years before I finally got out.
Can't even imagine. All right, talk about what happened to your son, and then the going to the counselor
Okay.
that help you see what was going on.
So my son was a light. He was such a joy and
Oh,
a adventurous little not little, but adventurous, big soul.
Yeah.
And he could see through the the lies. He could see through the deceptions and the double standards and the hypocrisy. So he wasn't always as obedient as he should be, and we were given punishments all the time in the cult if we weren't obedient enough or cook the right food or buy the right ingredients for this, whatever. Think of a reason. And the punishments were things like writing lines of affirmation. I am obedient to my guru. And mine was, I'm the wife of Christ, which was, after a while, I just stopped that as well. Just, this
Wow.
is not what I'm doing. And then there were other punishments like being sent out. I was often sent out of the room to sleep with my daughter in her room, and the children were like made to pick up dog poop and stuff. My son was made to eat out of a dog bowl. So the environment at the home was extremely toxic. And Joshua came home from school one day and he was really upset and he didn't want to talk about it. So I said, if you go to bed, we'll talk about it in the morning. And in the morning he was gone. So we called around and no one had seen him, and we reported him missing because it was so out of character. And the next day, the cult leader sent his assistant to go and have a look around the like the sort of the hillside behind our house.
Yeah.
And he was found with a knife wound to the neck and a kitchen knife next to his body, and that was immediately framed as a suicide. And the cult leader said that it was because he found out he was gay, and that was unacceptable to him, but more importantly was unacceptable to me, which is just so heinous. Just all of that, like, here we go again with the lies. And that just threw me into another I thought I'd already done my time with death, but this was even, I just went breath to breath for 6 months, and once again I would have taken myself out, but there I had 2 children, so
Oh my God. So
couldn't make them suffer anymore.
who delivered the news to you?
He did.
Okay. Were you How were you in shock? Was this the
Yeah.
point that you were just like, what the heck is going on? How did you take that news in the
I
moment?
was I was just broken, like my mind couldn't even really think.
Oh
And then he was at me like, this is your fault. You were,
man.
you he
Oh,
didn't he didn't believe that you would accept him as gay, and you weren't giving him the lifestyle that his soul had wanted. You're a disobedient disciple. We're supposed to all be living as divine family, modeling a divine family, and you're ruining it all. And his soul came in for the purpose of being in this divine family, and now because of you, he left. And yeah, and then he did that to my daughter. He blamed her as well, blamed my family. He just blamed everyone. That's just typical narcissistic behavior, right? You just blame everyone and push the attention away from yourself.
But to
And
get that news and then to have it be your fault on top of that, I can't even imagine what that would, how soul crushing that would be.
yeah, that soul crushing is the best way to describe that.
Oh my
It was
gracious.
yeah, and knew I needed help. And I knew it couldn't be just from a psychologist or even a psychiatrist.
Mhm.
I knew I had to see someone who had someone who was a spiritual teacher.
Yeah.
So I went to see a teacher who became a friend, and then she betrayed me. So
Oh.
she helped me at the time. I've had a betrayal being like I've got 7 planets in Scorpio. So I know all about death, birth, and betrayal. And then the next person I went to get help from was a man who'd been the cult psychologist, because all the cult members, we're also broken and wounded. We need to be paying a lot for other people to help and paying him and doing all this inner work. Meanwhile, while he's just out following his addictions. So anyway, I went to see this cult psychologist guy, and I walked in the door and he said, I knew you'd come to see me one day, because once again, I was disobedient. So I never went during the cult years. And he said, you're in a cult. You know you're in a cult, don't you? And I said, no, I don't know I'm in a cult. I thought I was in an ashram with my guru. Because we used to joke about the cult that wasn't, but we were the cult that wasn't a cult, because there was all these other
Ah,
cults that had the second, there's so many people, guys, who
yeah.
claim to be the second coming, right?
Hmm.
They're everywhere. So we were the real cult. I mean, we were the real, he was the real deal. Everyone else was just a fraud. And then this guy says to me, so go home and Google cult characteristics. So I went home and Googled cult characteristics, and there's a checklist. And as I'm going through the list, starts with charismatic leader who's the arbitrator of truth, who determines, that there's the love bombing and the hate bombing and the gaslighting, which he's a master of gaslighting. And that stuff works. It will send, it made me crazy, made me lose my mind. And the psyops and the money tithing. And sure enough, like you said, check, 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 check. I went, oh my God, I'm in a cult.
So when you gained that knowledge, how did you get out? How did you like? I'm sure you're like, oh my God, I'd love to leave tomorrow, but you were like your home, your kids. How did you break free?
It was a process. It took me probably another 9 months to
Oh
actually
man.
get out the door, because he had me a couple of ways. He had me trapped there because we had a child together, and legally I'm not supposed to move within more than 2 hours from the house, because that's the law in California when it comes to parenting. And
Okay.
I didn't even want to be in the States anymore. I didn't. I really didn't. I just wanted to probably be back to Australia.
Mhm.
So he had me that way. And he also had me like spiritually, because he said, we've been journeying tens of thousands of lifetimes to get to this point. And, we have our Dharma to fulfill. And if you turn your back on me and our Dharma, then you're turning your back on yourself and your soul and God. And
Oh man.
that kept me for a long time, because I knew that I was wounded, and I knew that where if I left without healing certain wounds, that I'd just be continuing to do that, have to do the work. So I was thinking, well, I might as well just do it here. But
I
oh my
gotcha.
gosh, I really did a job on myself, being, that committed to my spiritual path. So it's kind of a bit of a blur. I don't even remember that conversation with him when I actually said, that's it, I'm leaving. But I know that he didn't oppose my leaving, because he knew that he was going to have another death on his hands if he kept me there. So he let me go. And then I found out years later that my parents actually went to see a cult expert within a year of me leaving Australia, and they never did anything together. They had an extremely toxic divorce. But I don't know what that guy told them. It certainly wasn't, to let her know. And admittedly, if they'd come at me earlier on with that information that I was in a cult, I was crazy enough I wouldn't have listened.
I'd be like,
Oh,
no.
it would, no, it took a while for me to even be open to that idea. But I think that if people are in a cult, and it is important to let them know, because that part of the ways cult operates is so you don't realize you're entrapped in any way. Do think you're in a family, or a sports team, or a political party, or a religious group, or whatever. So it's important to, or you're a human living on Earth, to be able to recognize that there are these control mechanisms in effect that keep us unaware of a bigger picture. It's important to let people know, hey, we are being manipulated here. It's not just oh my God, I hate it. It's not just a conspiracy theory. I can't stand that whole thing now, because this is the thing about the term conspiracy theory. It was introduced into the zeitgeist by the CIA to deflect any like truth seekers
Yep.
unearthing what really happened to Kennedy, right? But
Hmm.
it's also, I reckon, that the term's been entrained by black magicians, because they're really the ones running the show. Where there's a lot, the black magic is in force here. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that or talk about that, but
Yep, it's
it is
true.
happening. All you got to do is watch any like um, uh, music concert,
Yep.
or halftime performance, or Olympic ceremonies,
Hmm.
open and closing, and then you'll see rituals, black magic rituals being played out publicly. And that's another reason why these devices work so well, because they can create and publicize black magic rituals, right?
Yeah.
Broadcast them. Otherwise, we would never see them. So they're
And people
very
can be
effective for that.
entranced by them. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
such an interesting world that we are living in. It is sometimes I kind of pinch myself and like, is this I'll call it crap. Is this crap really going on? Well, yeah, it is. And again, to be discerning of it, it's a really interesting dance right now. And I consider myself a highly spiritual person. Like part of my path, just like you said, was I'm here to bring the light. I'm committed. Like that's one reason I do this podcast every week. It's not like I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I love doing it. And it's to continue my education to keep me in the mix. Yet it just feels like to have a voice, to have other people have their voice. I don't care how many people listen to this show. If just 10 people listen, that's enough, because I also realize that this show is not to awaken people, that we're past that's not my job. My spiritual job is to have people that are experiencing this to be able to look at you, Isabella, and go, yes, I understand that, Eden. I understand where you're coming from. It's just to create this community of souls, of knowing that we can all get through this together. Yeah. Whew, okay. Shall we?
I
Because
just want to say that
yes.
we get through it best when we are aware of the bigger picture, when
Yeah.
we are aware of the forces that are working against us and the forces that are working with us.
Yeah.
It's important that we do know as best as we can what's going on without going down all the rabbit holes, because that's the reason there are the rabbit holes, is to distract us really from the what we're here to do, and that's be beings of light. Right, right. It doesn't really matter if we're don't have an audience of hundreds of thousands or followers or whatever. I feel for me, the best thing I can be doing through this time is to be uh, filled with as much light as possible, like physically doing that. So I sun gaze every day, often several times a day, to embody light. I look at crystals as when the prisms of light come through them, got hanging in the window there, and the light comes in. I take that light in. I take in moonlight, starlight, candlelight. If you had firelight, just any light, natural light will increase our light frequency. So
Let's
that's one of
let,
the
I'm interrupting you for a moment. Let's go ahead and move into the practice, because I love all these things that you can recommend. And these are things that we also talk about a lot on the show, but I also love whenever anyone else comes in.
Just
All
be
right, so
practice.
I like how you said any kind of light, any kind of natural light, fire. Like, please continue.
yeah, and that's another reason why these black screen devices are
Yeah.
making us sick, because we're replacing natural light that we'd be receiving through our eyes with this artificial light. And we could get into the whole like blue light thing or whatever. It just doesn't have to be, don't have to be like a rocket science to figure this out. Artificial light is not beneficial to us. We need sunlight with all its different codes and whatever. We just need sunlight on our skin and in our eyes. So if we're spending time indoors and just receiving artificial light, whether it's from the screens or from the lights themselves, that's not beneficial. So we need sunlight. And the fact that there's been this fear put around the
Yeah.
sun, where you have to wear sunscreen and you can't look at the sun, and that don't look at the sun is only part of the equation. If you haven't practiced, don't look at the sun when it's directly in the overhead, because that will be a blinding experience. But look at the sun when it's rising. Look at the sun when it's setting. That's a safe time. And it's the simplest practice to just be relaxed, because when we're relaxed is when we receive the most. So just be relaxed, facing east, and look at the sun for a few seconds to start with just like a lowered gaze, and not trust that whatever you're receiving is for the optimization of your being, and then be giving thanks for that practice. We can receive whatever we need in under a second, I'm sure. I trust the process. I trust divine intelligence. So it's not about doing it longer so it's going to be better or whatever. It's about just making that connection, giving thanks to the sun. Really, that's the highest form of information we can receive on this planet, is through the light of the sun. So, and it's free and it's effective, and it expands consciousness. I know from my own experience that's enabled me to hold all the information to eventually write my last book. And it also dissolves cognitive dissonance. And I know for me, it basically alleviates suffering. I don't know how it works, but it does. Helps. I don't suffer anymore. I used to suffer all the time. I was an absolute master of suffering. And
Oh,
all
that
day, every
sucks.
day. It did. It did, and I had to grab myself by the bootstraps and say enough of that. And I know that being in nature, sun gazing, staying grounded, just spending a lot of time in the ocean, and all that, that's been the key
The key for you.
to eliminating suffering. It doesn't mean that I don't feel sad or grief
Yeah.
or
You're
anger or
still
whatever, but
human.
I'm still human, but I'm just
Right.
not a suffering human.
You're not an expert at suffering anymore. And I want to bring this, let's go into grounding for a minute. I watched a show where you haven't worn shoes for 8 years except traveling. I want to bring this up. Episode 179. Laura never wears shoes, even when she travels. She does not. I remember having her on the show. I'm like, I didn't realize you never wear them. She's like, oh, yeah, plane flights, all that. So not having worn shoes for 8 years and grounding. Yeah, talk about your experience with that.
Yeah, I remember I was sitting, it sounds like cliche, but I was sitting under a palm tree. It had a curve in it. So I was lying there and I could feel this information coming in. I thought I just started to learn about grounding because I really didn't know about it before. I hadn't really thought about it. And I watched Clint Over's
Mhm.
documentary
Yeah.
on YouTube, Earthing, I think it's called.
Yep.
It's really important to watch that to understand that this is scientifically important, essential, and we can't expect to be optimally physically or mentally or spiritually healthy without a direct connection to earth every day, skin to earth. And that when people say, oh, but there's snow on the ground or whatever, I live in a city. The ways to stay grounded in when it's not possible to be bare feet on the grass or bare feet on the sand, because that's ultimately the best way to be grounded, or even just lying on the grass or the sand. But you can also touch trees because they've got their roots in the ground. So that's possible in the city. You can touch plants, as you walk past. Make sure it's not going to be a cactus or whatever, obviously. But yeah, touch trees and plants. You can touch grounded pets. If your pets go out for walks or whatever, you can touch them and that'll be grounding. You can touch another grounded person. If you share a hug with someone who's grounded, that'll be grounding. There's crystals, rocks, foods that are good to eat for grounding, all the root vegetables, potatoes, beets, carrots, and all that. I eat a lot of those to stay connected to the earth because we're going through such momentous change here at the moment, with the vibratory frequencies that are like bombarding Earth from the sun. The way we can more gracefully move through this time is to stay connected to the Earth. So we're moving with Earth changes rather than being, trying to keep up or whatever. So I try to stay connected to the Earth. Well, I am connected to Earth all the time. So grounding vegetables, there are meditations. Like the one that I like is, I think of it as treeness. So imagine yourself as the trunk of the tree, and then you've got branches of light connecting out into the ether, the cosmos, and then roots of light going down into the earth. And then just hold that intention, just hold the intention and the awareness of being connected to the earth. And yeah, that's the best one would be to go and lie on the earth, just be totally relaxed for as long as you can every day, and receive and give thanks and trust that whatever you need is coming in, and whatever you don't need is being let go, because that nature can work like that for us.
So nice. And I'll add into that too the blocking out of the sun, the chemtrails, and all that, I believe is also intentional to keep us from
Yeah.
going there. And you're right that the sun is bad and you need sunglasses and sunscreen. And there was one time I'll have to mention though, I was like, I'm not going to use sunscreen. I got burned all to like bubbles on my skin. And I remember again, and we're still in this 3D world. So to be discerning about everything. Isabella,
Definitely.
that was beautiful. I love this book. Well, I know you got two books. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, I have other ones, but never
Okay.
buy them or read them. I wrote them in the cult. I wrote one in the cult. So that's my cult classic.
Okay, which ones would you encourage? I know the Great Awakening and the New Earth, which you talk about a lot of the grounding and those things. So that one is one that you love. Is that correct?
Yeah, I really love both the books that
Okay.
I've written. They've got a lot of information about how we can best empower and protect ourselves through this time, and starting by being aware of what's going on in the bigger picture, and then building our health from the ground up, being connected to the earth, and then using natural medicines from nature, like obviously plant medicine and crystal medicine and light medicine. And then there are also technologies in our bodies that there are these processes that most people don't have a clue about. I only know about a couple of them, but becoming aware of these alchemical processes that happen. There's this one, do you know about the raising the chrism, or the sacred secretion, it's called?
No, I wrote that down. Can you explain some of that for a second?
So this is a process that goes on in every body every month. When the moon is in the same sign as the sun was in when you were born. So for me, when every month when the moon is in Scorpio, my body goes through this alchemical physical process. So it's happening right on that line between what's physical and non-physical. The pituitary and the pineal gland release fluids that travel down the central nervous system, the spinal canal there, and I'll just make it brief because it can be fairly detailed. They're alchemized at like the sacral chakra, and then at the base chakra. And
Ugh,
then at the base chakra, it becomes like, I don't know how to describe it, sort of like a gossamer, let's use that word to
great
describe
word.
this fluid, where they merge together and they travel back up through the 33 vertebrae. Like can you hear how that relates to the Bible stories, crosses over
Yeah.
into I think it's the thalamus. I could be wrong here, but anyway, it stays there for 3 days in the cave of darkness, where it then further alchemizes and then is released into the brain, and that affects the organs in the brain, and can create like renewal within the body, within the physical body. And this is the way some of those yogis live for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
They allow the body to go through this process, because it can be easily destroyed at any point by alcohol or processed foods, or just it can be destroyed by what you eat. If you're angry, if you're too active and expelling all your energy or whatever. So people who are following along with raising the chrism will take those days to just be still and silent, and nourishing the body, or not, maybe it's fasting or whatever for your body. But that's a process that goes along in every body every month. And like, who knew about it?
Mm-mm.
And then
And
who's
how?
taking the time to?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's that process. There must be other ones
Oh my
that
gosh.
that we can access and take us into 5D, right? These are the sorts of
Yes.
processes that we're becoming aware of, so that our bodies become more crystalline and less dense.
Mm. It is a glorious time to be alive. It is a challenging time, but yet so glorious. I'll tell you, Isabella, for me, and I talk about this a lot, but it continues to happen. So I think it's important to say, like every week, I feel different. I feel more connected, and like to me, I'm a spiritual warrior too. So this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm committed to doing, yet seeing all that happen within myself. So even if I, again, knowing that this is a human ascension as well, knowing that if I get down or, kind of in the blue or stuck, I know I'm going to get out of it. And then I know what's going to come after that is going to be great. So to hang in there, and to tell everybody who's listening, hang in there and listen to your story, what you went through, and where you are now. And you're sending me the book, which is beautiful. I will talk about that. So thank you so much for doing that as well.
Welcome.
I will show your website here, unless there's something else you want me to share instead. And your website is feelingbetter.naturally.love. I love that. And I'm again so pleased that you came here to share your truth and your authenticity. That's just beautiful. Anything else you want to leave us with?
Spend as much time as possible in nature every day, away from electronic devices, especially if you're feeling confused or angry. And for those emotions too, remember that expressing emotions is really important, so we don't get physically or mentally sick, but in a way that doesn't hurt anyone else or damage any other um, sentient being. So if it's anger, go and like yell into the wind or yell in your car with the windows rolled up, just into a pillow. I spend a lot of time on the floor with a pile of towels, screaming in rage. So but let the emotions move, and then be outside and allow yourself to be restored and recharged and healed by nature.
I
That's
love
my,
that. I love it.
that works for me.
And I'll add this before we close because I think it's really important. My last episode, 200 with P and Cullen, who are my only regular guests, is one other thing I want to throw out to everybody. I encourage you to listen to that episode, but also in terms of spiritual paradigms, that there are so many things that we're shifting from. That, for example, the Akashic records and certain things with Western astrology, that those practices, a lot of them are old in the old paradigm. They need to grow. So encouraging everyone also to be flexible with your thoughts, to be flexible with your discernment, even if there's something that you're like, oh my gosh, this has to be, again, I'll use that word, be flexible. Things are changing. Everything's changed. Almost everything's changing.
Right.
Thank you so much for being a guest. Please say goodbye, and y'all tune in next week. Thank you so much, Isabella.
Thank you, Eden. Thank you for providing this platform and for your passion and your courage and your commitment to the freedom and future of humanity. Thank you so much.
Oh, girl, thank you. I will drink that in. All right, y'all. See you next time. Y'all, find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Truth Social, as well as Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, plus a plethora of other audio directories like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So like, subscribe, do it all. See ya.